Hello friends, welcome to the Tech Protein, and we are discussing IP addressing. So friends, in the previous session we have discussed about what is an IP address, what is its use, how different network devices talk to each other on the network. So now let us try to understand some more details about the IP address. So friends, as part of this particular topic, we would be discussing about IP address, how does it work at the network layer, why we call IPv4 address as a 32-bit address. Then we'll see IPv6, which is a 128-bit address. Then we'll further to discussing about IPv4 and IPv6, we will talk about decimal and binary conversion, which is important to understand how different classes of an IP address are created. So once you understand the conversion process, how a decimal number is converted into binary, so basis that we'll be discussing about the concept of priority bits. And once you understand the concept of priority bits, we will then further move on to the next section to understand how different IP classes are defined, what are their ranges, and how we can use it in our day-to-day life. So friends, one thing which is very important to understand here is the different layers in the OSI model. So friends, IP address works at this particular layer. Okay, so the layers in the OSI model are numbered from bottom to top. So consider, if I have to give the numbering to these layers, so physical layer is layer 1, then data link layer comes at layer 2, then network layer is layer 3, and so on. So application layer in the OSI model works at layer 7. So this thing needs to be very clear, as when you work on any of the network devices or any technology where IP addressing is involved, you need to have a clarity that IP address works at network layer. So this is the layer at which IP address works. Okay, so it's a layer 3 address, or you can also call it as a network layer address. So logical addressing works at the network layer. Okay, and we have already discussed about MAC address. So MAC address works at data link layer. So physical layer, if you want to note down the way the addressing works at this layer, so there is no addressing that works at the physical layer, but it generally talks about bits. Okay, so signals, cables, okay, so all that stuff works at the physical layer, where an on signal is represented using 1 and off signal is represented using 0. So data at physical layer is in the form of bits. Then data at the MAC address layer is in the form of frames. Okay, so data, when communication happens on the network, so data at this particular layer is in the form of frame. Okay, and this frame can only be understood by the data link layer, and the device that works at data link layer or the layer 2 is a Ethernet switch. So switch is the device that works at data link layer. Coming to the network layer, so there are devices. So the main device, the well-known device which works at network layer is router. Okay, computer also understands this particular layer. Okay, so we'll be discussing more about how data flow happens between different networks, and communication is established through these 7 layers. So friends, for this particular session, it is important to know that IP address works at network layer, and network layer is at layer 3. Okay, so it's a layer 3 address or a network layer address, and that is where we call it as a logical address. So friends, लॉजिकल एड्रेस राइट, जैसा लॉजिक वैसा आप एड्रेस दे सकते हो. ओके, इट इज़ नॉट समथिंग like a MAC address. MAC addresses are burnt into the network adapter by the manufacturer itself, but when it comes to IP address, we call it as a logical address because it depends on the network your device is connecting to. Consider you have a home network and you are connecting your laptop or a mobile phone into that network. Then the moment you connect your device to the Wi-Fi access point, the access point is going to assign an IP address to your device, and that address assigned by the access point is going to be something like 192.168.0.10. and if you take the same laptop to your office network and connect it there, the IP address will be different from the home network. So friends, I hope you got a clear understanding on the layer at which the IP addressing works. So it's a layer 3 address, network layer address, and also known as a logical address. So in the upcoming session, let us talk about the bit conversion of this IP address, how this IP address is composed, and what are the different parts of this particular IP address. So thank you for watching. Let's move on to the next topic.